How was the attitude that they saw? The intensity a military person can bring to a conversation can be pretty intimidating. How did you handle that? Did you kind of, not to say you back down, but did you kind of dampen it down a little bit or just kind of reframe it in a way that they didn't feel intimidated? How did that
Yeah.
communication develop?
Interesting question. I will touch on that in a second. I just want to tell a really quick story. I was just talking to a dealership the other day, a Lexus dealership, and I found out that the guy I was talking to, never met him before, was a military guy, and he had literally said the word, "Hey, just I guess I bring up your SA for blah blah blah," just situational awareness.
Right. Yep.
But I was like, if I wasn't in the military, I would have had no clue what he meant by SA. And, and he didn't know I was military. I figured I learned it
Interesting.
from him. So he wasn't like trying to relate to me. It was just, it came out of his mouth because it's just there. And I was like, wow, that's really interesting that and then I mentioned it to him. I said, hey, just so you know. Um, and it's like, oh wow,
Good.
yeah. So I helped, help square him away, right? uh,
Exactly. Another military term.
another military
Right.
term, right? But so going back to your question, remind me what it was.
It was, that intensity we bring to a
The
conversation,
intensity, yeah,
or should I, a better way to say it, the stereotype people expect when they hear
right,
military.
right. So it's interesting coming from my perspective for this because you got to remember, I was a trombone player. I was commerce, community relations. My One of my primary goals was to interact with the public and make them feel warmer, softer about the military. Um, I mean, while you're still carrying yourself with a specific discipline, you can't be so stoic that you're unreachable, and you have to have that communication and soft contact so that they feel like I can relate to you, I can understand you, and I can talk to you. So I would say I was set up for a little more success than maybe some others who come like straight from like a line unit because they're so entrenched in that type of culture. So, but what I will say is what I'm going to generalize this. I don't think a lot of people in the civilian sector realize that people in the military are still people. And when you pull them out of the military and get them removed far enough from it, they're just like everyone else. You want to be treated with respect. You want to have a casual conversation. You want to call everybody by their first name. And that's what the civilian sector is looking for. So you just have to kind of shed a lot of that constraint from the way you dialogue with people, and also drop like 99% of the curse words. You
Right.
can't f this in every conversation you have because it's not gonna sit well. Um, so, but it's a, it's it's a skill. It's going to take some time, but I would say just be more yourself and try and remember who that person was before you joined. But that doesn't mean be undisciplined or unruly. It just means don't be so uptight that they don't feel you're approachable. Um, but you do want to also come off as decisive, that you can make a decision. That's one of the things I think that the military really drives with people is the ability to make a decision on the spot. I see a lot of indecisiveness in the civilian
Oh,
sector.
really? Okay.
People are like, well, I got to go check with this. I got to go check with this, or we're going to go talk to these people. Um, but at the same time, you might just find that but they internally, if you're given a role, you need to be comfortable to make a decision in that role, if that's within your left and right limits. And I am blessed. My boss, you're going to interview him tomorrow. He
Right.
is fantastic because he will allow you to make mistakes that he figures that the company isn't going to suffer hard for, but you'll learn more from if you make it, and
Right.
correct it on your own. And he won't lambast you on the back end. He's like, "What did we learn?"
That's
And
good.
he's very. I'm just super fortunate. I mean, he just I can't say enough good things about my boss Ross.
Well, I think the point there, one, great leadership, but then for the hiring managers who are listening to this interview is to realize that the military people are there to help, but we have to have that line of communication open, right?
Yeah,
A lot of my experience, and I've seen other people experience that come out, that the civilian world just expects you to deliver. They're like, okay, just get this done. And they don't give training, they don't give guidance. And then they're like, why didn't he succeed? Well, you never gave me any feedback. At the end of the day, it's all about leadership. And leadership, whether you're in civilian, military, or anything else, is giving guidance and helping people guide to accomplish the mission. So when you're not there, they can work, right? They can do things. And then the other thing I was going to mention is that today's military is not the full metal jacket stereotype that people see in the movie.
It's not.
Today's military is a lot about, we have a lot of conversations, even officers with enlisted, senior enlisted, even the junior enlisted. We talk a lot because we're building people, because that moment that officer's gone for any reason, he's, killed or replaced or moved on, he's got to go to another part of the battlefield. That unit has to operate. So there's a lot of conversation, teaching and learning. So when we get in that situation, we can execute. And that's when you see that stereotype come out. But then we can pull that, put it back in a box, and then we communicate again, and leadership, and organize, and get things done.
Yeah.
So that's a message for everyone to kind of understand. Today's military is not what you see in the movies. It's a whole different world.